At Smith, we've been kind of talking about the importance of design systems for a long time. We have lots of IP that we've built out over the years that have helped us as we make large scale e-commerce applications and, complex commerce experiences across web, but also mobile apps and that kind of thing for consumers and also businesses. So different use cases and different complexities with that. And we built this system out that gives us kind of ultimate flexibility between clients and gives us a base of our starter to work with. There's lots of different mechanisms that were included in here. Everything is based off Tailwind, which are base CSS properties that we use that are kind of a pretty familiar developer-friendly framework. Those are ultimately used as variables that allow us to do things like light and dark modes, different themes that we can put together for different clients, and then control things like how the devices change different breakpoints and different variables that get used for different widths of devices, and that kind of thing. So all this information are tons of decisions that teams make commonly. We need to make decisions about what we call things, about the size of things that show up in our interfaces. So what is typography and what is that stack and what are the properties involved with that and how does that scale gracefully across the interfaces? How do we use color, both at their primitive level for like brand inputs and base level tokens that our clients have as their brand guidelines? And then how do we use them semantically within the interface to use them, in different ways to express, the UI how it should? How do we decide on how we use the grid and how different elements move around the website? How do we align on corners? How do we align on shadows in the way that depth is presented within our UI? So what we've done is abstracted a lot of these decisions that are commonly made on the types of projects that we work on and built out a system of variables that allow us to gracefully treat design as data and present this as even JSON objects. And all this hard work that we've been doing, best practices of building out design systems, building out components that are well structured, that use those lower level components and tokens in their architecture, and really sophisticated instructions and properties that get exposed to help us indicate the different ways that that component might behave in an interface and the different properties that that has that we can kind of send turn button on, buttons true, buttons false, labels true. The button type is this, the button type's that. And these decisions scale and combine when we think about what's been coined as atomic design. And as these decisions start to layer and we build bigger and bigger objects and how those objects are reused within our interfaces and our products. So over time, we've built out a lot of these things. We've built them the right way. There's tons of metadata that are included within them that allow us to send this and naturally work with AI in a great way. So what I'm going to show today is kind of like what we're calling like agent to UI workflow. And we've got, our design system here, like I showed, with that foundation of a fabric of different variables and hooks that do different things to my interface in different ways. I've got these low-level components that we've built out and a mirror of these low-level components in code. And then I've got starter pages that we use as kind of our basis as we make, site to site and different common use cases that get presented in those. So if one of our examples is like a product page here, and this is one way a product page may show up, And for example, I'm working on a product team and we've got a new requirement of a new feature that comes in to, maybe add services to this product. So not just buying this product here, but being able to like add on a warranty or something else. So you'll see above here, I've prepared a new page that has that product up here and the idea of maybe those services or those add-ons below. And what I'll do is show how we take it from Figma here, going into dev mode, using some prompting, but also using the connection of Figma's MCP server that I've enabled, and how that allows me to grab all the details, all that time that we've invested into this product over time, all those best practices in terms of the tailwind tokens and the variables being, stored within these objects. All of this stuff, all of this meta information now can be communicated to a computer, and it can get all of our intent, our design intent, captured over to a real live coded component. And when I click on these info buttons, it's going to bring in this drawer, which is another core component within our component library. If we were to look over here, we've got a drawer component. This is kind of the architecture of it. These are examples. And we'll be calling upon this to kind of make this demo happen as well. The other things that I'll show is kind of where a lot of these components are rendered and kind of our front end workshop storybook. So just like I was showing in the Figma file, we have a comparable of all those same exact variables represented as live code. And all these objects also were rendered through AI using our design system, object by object from the bottom, working up to, an experience that gets presented. So when we were on that foundation page, looking at those decisions that get made across, how is my display hierarchy working, heading text, different hooks that are available to us. But then to some of those elements that I was just showing you, right? So that button, what does that look like again when those things are true or when they're false, or those different properties that I have available? So that's what we call like stack mirroring, is I can take something in here and it's the same exact object of materials as what's over there in the code. And that's one thing that we preach very strongly as we are navigating, AI and how we introduce it into our workflow. The biggest thing that slows teams down is consistency, and kind of having to translate each other's work. So by having this stack mirroring of what's in my world is literally the same thing you call it in your world, it allows us for some really awesome velocity, and ultimately being able to do better things, cooler things for our clients faster and in better ways. And we have a lot more fun when we're doing it too. I'm going to take this object over here. You'll see that there's a state for it. Again, when we explore this component, there's the initial state for it, but then what does that look like when one or more services are added? So that's kind of what this base level component does. It's, again, architected from lower level atomic elements. So it has the button component there. It has the divider. It has my typography. It has my spacing variables, etc. So when I go over to cursor, that has my entire code base within it. And I've got, again, all those blocks and all those elements right here would be the comparable of that button we were just looking at. So when I was talking about like the types, there's a default button, there's an outline style, there's a destructive style. This is how those elements are visualized in code. BG primary, text primary foreground, a shadow in the extra large, extra small style, and when it's hovered, use background primary, but do it in its 90-10. So it's really cool when, us as designers are like, you're using the same things that I do over here. What is that? It's my text foreground. What is that? It's my it's my text primary, So this allows us to have, again, that parity between what I'm calling things and what you're calling things in your systems. And it gives us some really powerful things. Again, typography, label small class. This stuff's powerful because it allows us to not be the translator between the system. It allows us to take this input or this intention that we've gathered into all this metadata and translate that over to a real object. So I'm going to come over here. This again is a mirror of what I was just showing in Storybook. It's my code base. It has all of my lower level UI as well as blocks like that buy box we were just looking at on that PDP. And when we go a little bit higher and look at the presentation of a PDP, you see that's what I was just showing you in Figma. So it's the real thing that we were just looking at in my code right now. I do not have a component here for this service component. When I tab back over to my Storybook, it's the same exact thing that we're looking at. So that's the reality of what my code looks like. And now my Figma file is kind of out of sync with what maybe this new template that we're considering as a product team to incorporate into our code base. So I'm going to take this here. I'm going to go into dev mode. I'm going to copy the prompt. I'm going to go over to Cursor, which is an IDE that has agents in the mix, which is really cool. These agents can perform actions for me. But the importance of here is it's not me going to ChatGPT or Claude in isolation and saying, make me this button based on this screenshot. Because what it does there, it has no intent. It has no understanding of the context of my code base. Whereas here in this IDE, having an agent alongside me and awareness of my entire code base, what it's going to do is kind of what's called grepping. So it looks at all the previous patterns and ways I've done things and respects that as it starts to make new things for me. So the rules and the ways, all that intention, all those things that, we've spent so much time getting right and getting buttoned up for that consistency, you'll see how it pays off within the UI here. And then we'll also create a Storybook story so that we can visualize this update to the PDP. So I'm going to come over here to my chat. I'm going to post that. I'm going to call it add this to the blocks section. Call it the recommended add-on block for services. And also make a Storybook story with toggles and properties to expose. So what it's doing is it's first asking me, can I get design context? So can you give me permission to read your Figma file? Yep. So it's looking at that node specifically. It's getting the design context. So now that it has permission to Figma, now I'm giving it permission to that exact file and that exact node. It just pulled a screenshot from my Figma into the code base here just to give it reference. But again, it has all the layers of information within here. It just built out my component for that recommended add-on component. And it just built that story. It's re-reviewing it. It's linting it right now. So what it's linting is, reviewing it based on rules that I have in my code base, kind of like a spell check, seeing if there's anything that it's not passing. It just did that. It found a couple things that it could have fixed. It gave me a little add-on and a readout of what was just made. It made the component of recommended add-ons and it made a Storybook story for me. So that's pretty amazing. Let's see how well it did it. I'm in Storybook. I'm going to refresh, which it might not necessarily need to do, but you'll see here, now I've got that recommended add-on component and it's isolated. And now I can use that when I want to add it to a given page template. So when I think about the product detail page template, right? It has a media gallery component. It has a buy box component. It has an extended product content. These are accordions. So you'll see that these are just little blocks that get combined to stitch together. And by isolating these components and working about in them on isolated bits and then combining them together, it gives us really strong composability. So if I go back over to my recommended add-on, this is going to be that thing. I can kind of toggle it between my light modes and my dark modes, kind of verify that works well. One thing you may notice is like that info tooltip doesn't look as nice as it did in Figma. That was smaller. So that's kind of a cool little thing that I can do is the info tooltip is too large, make it 12 by 12. And I'll give it that kind of discrete instruction. It's going to go in there immediately. It's going to fix it for me because it's amazing. I can review it, double check it, look at the before and after on the diff of that code, see where that was altered, which is really cool. I can accept it, keep it, commit it, and right there in 2 seconds, now my component is fixed with just some simple English telling it exactly what's going on. So by default, what does it look like when there's one selected? What does it look like when there's all selected? This is presented in documentation over here. So what's cool is all these are individual strings within the component. It's an API that I've made for this given component. So I can say, Smith's service component, just as an example of strings that are available to me that I can change, that I've exposed as a developer to, give authors or different other developers that are, using it within their code base flexibility and different properties that they can turn on. Kind of like when I go back to that button example, I had a property to turn on an icon in the beginning and an icon to turn it on at the end. And those are just strings that I determine when I'm creating a component or deciding and working with the larger team, what properties should be available to me with this given element and how does it scale out in different use cases. So, help me or get support or whatever, those things are and the different options. Those are all different Booleans that we can turn on and off. And down here are different stories that represent the different states of what that given component may look like and how it may work when you look at it and work with it. So the second one that we wanted to build out was that drawer. And we've got plenty drawer components on the site. There's a drawer lower level UI component over here that I can use in different ways. This one's like maybe a dialogue on desktop, but when I resize my screen, it turns into a mobile drawer. There's different properties that it's kind of showing to me based on, what I want to use for that. If I come back over to Figma, I'll do the same thing. Copy this, go to cursor. I'm going to close this chat I'm going to open a new chat because now I have a new set of context to give it. Now create a block story for this drawer. This will work in conjunction with the recommended add-on block. When users click the info tooltip in the component, it will open this drawer of more information. So like that's a lot of context, right? Like use this drawer, do this thing. Like that's what we call it in our world, but it might be something else in your world. You might call it a sheet or, this island that comes in. So again, that's the beauty of like when your prompts and have the context of your code base, because whatever I say in my words are what it knows within how I've used different components. And it becomes really cool and powerful when we have these different use cases that start to combine and allows us to make these things and just like work in natural language with the code base to do the things that we want to do. So it's adding this block. It's calling it a recommended add-on more info component, which is kind of nice just to showcase it. Planning some next steps, giving me a summary of what it just did. I'm going to go over to that. We have this here. Now you've got recommended info, more information. So here it's showing that exact same drawer that we just had in Figma. I can go back. I can learn more about the different objects. So very cool how those two things can now connect together. And now, as my last act, I'm going to stitch it together. So I'm going to go over to cursor. I'm going to say, hey, I have a recommended add-on component. I want you to add that in the right-hand rail below the buy box component on the product detail page story. So what's cool about that is now I want to go to a specific page because I'm talking to that specific set of code. It's going to have the context of others, but I like to do this to be even more specific, because when you're specific and give it that context, you're going to get better results. Update this template and story to include the option of turning on and off the visibility of the recommended add-on component. Add it below the buy box component in the right rail. So update the storybook story for the template. Always harder to write and talk and do that when you're recording, but so it's doing that for me. Again, like I was able to just say, like, about this recommended add-on component, add it to this other thing that I've got going on. And it's like literally magic. Literally magic. But it's magic because we put in the hard work to make all these things know what each other is doing. And this is like stuff you get out of the box by working with Smith's IP in our starter store. There's a lot of things that we do being experts in commerce, working on sites of this scale, things that we do that are repetitive, that we're doing site to site. So these things that we don't want our customers to pay for that. And we want it to kind of be part of the framework that allows us to be able to innovate for you, almost beginning day one. I believe I need to approve these requests here, review it, accept it. I'm not reading, so hopefully it did it right. May not have been specific enough, or it may have been a little too much. My docs here, it may be another story. Show recommended add-ons. So yeah, it's by default, it's not showing it. That's pretty cool. And now I just hit true. It's here. This should, when I click it, it should open up that recommended add-on drawer that I just showed. I won't fix that. It wouldn't take long to get that going, but how cool is that? We just showed from design through AI, through cursor. We built the small component. We built the drawer. We updated our base product detail page template to now incorporate this new feature that has been requested by the product team. I can turn it off to its default or, what it looks like today. And that was all pretty easy, a couple minutes and we were in, this could be pushed to production. I could push it to a pull request for my, lead developer, make sure it passes some higher level standards for us as an enterprise, or however it gets consumed to different code bases. But, this is kind of the future that we've been seeing. By the time we post this, it's probably outdated, right? But the world's moving fast, and the point is you need to get the fundamentals right before you scale it out to AI, because AI knows nothing without the rules that you give it. And the more rules you give it, the more consistent it can create the things that you want to create based on whatever conditions, whether it's your brand, how you want to sound, how you want to look, how you want to feel, but also how you write your code. Do you use dashes? What are the rules? What are the languages that it writes it in for you? What are the other applications within your enterprise that can gracefully scale to different needs using the same system? So there's a lot of power in it, and it's allowed us to move at crazy speed, and we're having a lot of fun with it and seeing some really practical applications of how it can really help us drive more potential to performance.